Welcome back. Another episode of Trench Talk. Episode 19, week 11 is in the books. Got a lot to talk about here. First couple things, we'll start with our news section. This came out yesterday around lunchtime. You might have been enjoying your Subway sandwich when you look down at your phone and see that Joe Douglas got the can.
Subway.
The Jets. best fast food sandwich place, but Joe Douglas, the Jets general manager, is the next in line for the franchise to get the boot in this Aaron Rodgers saga. I mean, I'll just start it off with you. I mean, your thoughts on this decision by the Jets?
I feel like they're trying to put a Band-Aid on like a waterfall or something. It's like, I mean, it might help. I feel like there's just a lot of issues with the Jets, and I mean, sure, when like the players in the organization seem unhappy, it feels like, yeah, there probably needs to be a change at the top instead of just like, they tried to fire their head coach. That didn't really change anything. Maybe their GM, and we'll see kind of like what goes on from here. But
yeah,
I still think that this is kind of a wash of a season. And I mean, you mentioned him. He's a good draft guy. Why not keep him on, I guess, help out a little bit on the draft process? And if things aren't working early next season, you already have another guy in line,
Yeah, and I mean, it's right now the Jets are not setting themselves up for a good season next year.
No.
Based on these decisions. I mean, you mentioned it. Robert Saleh also getting fired earlier this season. We talked about that, but I think it was Nick Wright talked about this, or someone who fires their general manager between weeks 11 and 12 for just like, I mean,
like what is that going to do for you?
Because now you're going to be you're the only team right now going in. You weren't the only team that would be looking for a new head coach. Obviously, Dennis Allen was fired. The Saints are going to be looking for a head coach as well. That alone already sucks. Now you're going into, the twilight weeks of this season looking for a new general manager, someone that's going to draft the future for what should be the last couple of years of Aaron Rodgers' career. And you're just not setting yourself up for success for next year and the years after.
Yeah, I don't see what their plan is. It's like they're too late in the season to make a push. Like at this point, they're already eliminated from the playoffs. If they win out, like everybody else has to lose out. So it's like, why not just pack it up, say, okay, this year's a wash, figure out what you're trying to do on offense, figure out how to patch up that defense, and then go into next year with, playoffs in mind.
And you mentioned it about Robert Saleh getting fired and how it didn't make things any better. Everyone's been saying too, and I agree, if you watch the tape, you look at the numbers and everything, got considerably worse defensively after they left. I mean, we're out here letting Anthony Richardson go on game-winning drives to beat us in his first game back as a starter. And I believe that was in New York as well. So, yeah. I mean, things have just not gotten better. And, yeah, we've talked about the draft, or we talk about, the drafts that Joe Douglas had. You, as someone who's watched a lot of, paid more attention to the drafts over the years, Joe Douglas was a fine drafter. Like he had people are going to bring up some of the misses, like, oh, you miss on Mekhi Becton and Zach Wilson, both first-round picks. But, I mean, the drafts in the recent years have not been that bad.
Well, yeah, and I think I feel like people don't see that. It's like, but I also think that the GM has to do more than draft. Like that's the reason that Dorsey was fired for the Browns. I mean, he was great at drafting, but they were still losing games, like a lot of them. So it's
Mm-hmm.
like, at some point you're going to be like, okay, you have really talented players. We have to do something with it. We can have a mediocre guy drafting, but if he's able to get us to the playoffs, that's a lot better than, a guy who's just bringing talent on the team to just die there.
Right. And you bring up John Dorsey, and that kind of makes me think of maybe some of the bad trades too. Like, okay, was it technically Joe Douglas's decision to bring in Aaron Rodgers? Yeah, not looking great so far. I think I might have saw something that he wanted Aaron Rodgers benched earlier this season. That could just be something I'm making up, but I feel like I saw a tweet on that. But to bring up John Dorsey, it's like some of the other guys you brought in, like John Dorsey. I believe he was there for the Odell trade.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, it didn't pan out. Something a little similar for Joe Douglas is the Hassan Reddick trade this offseason. Doesn't play until halfway through the year. Um,
Mm-hmm.
Signing guys like Mike Williams to come in, Mecole Hardman just to trade him back to the Chiefs. So maybe I'm giving Joe Douglas a little more credit than he deserves, but it's still a bit of a head scratcher for me.
Yeah. I feel like it is just the mid-season part of it is the weird part because it did seem like it was about time to move on from him. I just, when you're 3-8, there's no reason to not just let it ride out.
Mm-hmm. And that maybe be a tad bit worried about the Jets losing the locker room a bit more because when you fire your general manager on a pretty young team, you're going to get guys like Brees Hall, Will McDonald, Sauce Gardner, Garrett Wilson. It's like, okay, well, everyone that brought me into this organization that believed in me is gone now.
Yeah. I mean, all you have now is Aaron Rodgers, which is kind of how the team is turning into.
Mm-hmm.
It's just Aaron Rodgers' team.
Yeah. Um, you wanted to also talk about maybe some other coaches that you believe are on the hot seat. I think there are a few out there. Um, what are maybe some that you had in mind?
Well, I've seen a lot of people talk about like good coaches having bad win-loss records currently. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, people are wondering if it's Stefanski's time to go. I'm saying no there, but
Mm-hmm.
other people like Mike McCarthy, maybe it's time for him to pack it up.
I mean, I'm fine with that. This is the last year of his contract, so firing
Yeah,
him would do nothing, especially when the season's gone already. But
yeah.
yeah.
Or like Zach Taylor, who, yes, he's had playoff success,
Mm-hmm.
but if you can't pull out wins with Joe Burrow having an MVP season, it's like, what are we kind of doing here?
Agreed. And there's also other coaches around the league, like you said, good coaches with bad win loss records. One that comes to mind right now is Kyle Shanahan,
Mm-hmm.
Sean Payton, who the Broncos, yeah, they just won, but they are still 6-5. That is with a rookie quarterback, but you know, still not particularly too well. Um, just looking around the league here, trying to think. I think Mike McDaniel is a good head coach with the Dolphins,
Yeah.
but obviously to a situation, he is back. They are winning games now, but
Yeah, and I think Dayball.
yeah, and we'll get to more stuff with the Giants too, but like those are some guys I still believe in. If I had to choose the next one on the hot seat, I mean, it's pretty obviously Doug Peterson in Jacksonville.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's a very easy firing to make on Black Monday. So,
Yeah, because I mean, you can't blame him for losing with Mac Jones at this point, but if you're losing with, you're kind of wasting Trevor Lawrence's career at this point,
mhm,
right? I mean, I feel like he's still one of the better quarterbacks in the league, and he definitely doesn't look like it this year.
right. Yeah, I think I think on that Black Monday after the Super Bowl, you're going to see guys like Doug Peterson and probably Matt Eberflus with the Bears as well. Probably get let go.
Mm-hmm.
Those would be my two big guys there.
Yeah, I can see that. I mean, both coaches with young quarterbacks, young, very talented quarterbacks.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of talent on the team, and not a lot to show for it.
Yeah, and it kind of sucks if you're a Bears fan. I know a couple, and I'm just like, dude, I'm sorry that you're kind of just stuck in this cycle of draft a quarterback, head coach is terrible, fire the head coach, uh, get a new head coach, doesn't work out, so then you think the quarterback's the problem, draft a new quarterback, rinse and repeat.
Yep, I think they're still praying for the day that they get a solid quarterback.
Well, I think they might have that in Caleb Williams, but they needed to know going into the season that Matt Eberflus was not the guy.
Yeah, I don't. It's just kind of weird that they just you bring in a generational guy like Caleb Williams and you expect just to plop him into that system and be like, all right, we haven't had a quarterback succeed here in a while, so
Mm-hmm.
maybe he can. I mean, Mitch Trubisky was good for a hot second.
Mm-hmm.
Justin Fields showed flashes,
Yeah.
but I think they're just you can't capture like lightning in a bottle like every single week.
Right. Yeah, I think it's almost like I've thought of it as some people they don't think like this, but it's almost like um, people believe it's like a Madden simulation where it's like, okay, I'm going to
Mm-hmm.
draft a quarterback and I'm going to keep everything else. I'm going to sim 10 years in the future, and that quarterback and head coach are going to have 4 Super Bowls.
Yeah,
It doesn't work like that.
you're like, oh, but this quarterback, he's a X factor quarterback out of the draft or something. And
Yeah, 99 arm strength.
yeah,
But
we'll see if that impacts the franchise. The issue is you can't restart, you can't reload the save file in real life.
sounding like my dad back when I was in middle school playing Call of Duty all day.
Yeah.
There's no
Once you pause
restarting.
that game,
Yeah,
come downstairs.
there's no respawn in life. Anyways, someone that hopes he can maybe respawn his career. Daniel Jones gets moved down to, I believe this was announced Monday, not just relieved as of his duties at the starting quarterback, moved down to QB3, which I wish I could pick a head coach or like a head coach's brain on how this goes, because I remember seeing this with Zach Wilson a couple years ago. Goes from QB1 to QB3. I want to know why that happens, but yeah, Tommy DeVito, new starter for the Giants.
We saw what happened the last time he started.
Yeah, and like you think about like Tom, like okay, he's not going to be great. I'm going to say that right now. He is going to play Cooper Rush on Thanksgiving though, which I think is going to be awesome. That'd be interesting to see. Maybe the Cowboys will actually win a game at home, but
Oof,
like
that's game.
why do you so you have this guy now, Daniel Jones, making $40 million, going from QB1 to QB3 for what reason? I mean, I know he probably shouldn't be the starter at this point, but I mean QB2.
I have like a theory that I don't know if this is just a way for them to tank the rest of the season, and maybe they're saying that Daniel Jones. I honestly don't think he's like a bad quarterback. We've seen bad quarterbacks in the past, and he's been able to win games and have decent stat lines on the way.
Mm-hmm.
He's just inconsistent. I mean, I feel like maybe he's not the answer for the future, but he's good enough where if they wanted to win games, they would probably start him the whole season.
Yeah, and there's a couple moments that people have brought out where it's just like you want him to make a play there, and he has not been able to do that.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that has been consistent, especially this year, and that's why they make this decision to do that. It is likely a tank decision. I don't really know if Tommy DeVito gives them the best chance to win right now, and especially with them sitting at They had a bye this week, so I'm not quite sure what their record is. They're 2-8, so not sure if Tommy Cutlets is gonna rattle off 7 straight wins to get a playoff spot. But I've seen things happen.
And then Drew Lock is their second string. Need I say more?
Well, for me and the viewers, you cut out, so you might need to say more. You said Drew Lock is their number 2, and then you paused.
That was it. Yeah.
That.
I think actually you cut out because you just stared at me for a second.
Oh, well.
Yeah.
It's my fault. It's always my fault. But
Drew Lock, Tommy DeVito, that is the perfect combination to lose the rest of the games this year. So
yeah, but I mean, at least it'll be a good 2 weeks for me as a fan of Baker Mayfield and the Bucs. The Bucs are going to get a win now because they are out of their blunt rotation of terrible games that they are like tough teams that they have to play. And then like I said, on Thanksgiving, my Cowboys might actually get a win.
Yeah, I mean, this is probably the team to beat. The Giants.
Listen, the season's over, but like a win on Thanksgiving would be nice, especially when I'm going to be in Minnesota and I'm going to be around some people that like to give me shit for being a Cowboys fan, especially this year. It really runs into the meme of like, damn, my phone has never been blown up more than when my team loses. And it's very true this year.
Oh yeah, I mean, I feel like your phone would just not have any rest with how many losses they're racking up.
Well, you think about it in like the last 3 years when they were going 12-5. I'm like, y'all were except for like losing in the playoffs, but like y'all were pretty quiet the last 3 regular seasons. I don't know.
Now it's getting tiresome. It's just too easy to hate in the Cowboys now.
They don't want to see me winning, Kodak Black. But yeah. So Giants. I guess another thing too. Do you think this is the last year of Daniel Jones with the Giants?
Probably not. To be honest, I think they go out, they draft a quarterback, and maybe they just have Daniel Jones as safety net,
Mm-hmm.
Because that you draft a quarterback, you could get a Bo Nix, you could get a Jaden Daniels, or you could get a Zach Wilson.
I think the big thing with Daniel Jones and this benching too is also this is year 6 of Daniel Jones, and we're still kind of making excuses for him where it's like, oh, well, he's not that bad, or he's not. I mean, I think people do underestimate his ability to run the football as well. I think he is underrated in that factor. But I mean, as someone who, as a Cowboys fan who's seen a lot of Daniel Jones, it's like this is year 6, and we're still kind of waiting to see, like 6 years in the NFL, and we still really haven't figured it out with him.
Yeah, and it just, I mean, I have his stats pulled up. He had that one like playoff push. I want to say.
Yeah, that's when they That's when they beat the Vikings in the wild card round.
Mm-hmm. And then that's when they're like, well, this guy can get us a Super Bowl.
Yep, here's $160 million.
Yeah, but I mean, his stats don't look that bad. It's mainly just the fact that he can't win games.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like at some point the organization just needs to be like, what is our goal here? Like, what are they trying to win a Super Bowl? Because I feel like every team should want to win a Super Bowl.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you want to win a Super Bowl, I don't think that Daniel Jones is your guy.
24, 45, and 1 in his 70 starts.
Mm-hmm.
So.
And yet He's almost up to 15,000 passing yards and has a positive touchdown to interception.
Now, how positive is that touchdown to interception?
70-47. And then how many rushing touchdowns has he had? 15 in his career. So, but also fumbled the ball 50 times. That's kind of crazy. All right.
Yeah, we don't have to keep defending Daniel Jones. We can now move on to some more fun segments talking about the actual games that went on this week. Where do we want to start? We could just start with the Chiefs being dethroned by the Bills.
Yeah, we could go from defending Daniel Jones to defending a good quarterback in Mahomes.
Yeah. Who, I believe he has 2 picks in this game, I want to say. I was watching it for the most part. There's a lot of people, and I agree with this. If you're the Chiefs, okay, well, first of all, you knew a loss was going to come in the regular season at some point. And you're probably going to, you lose to the Bills on the road. Patrick Mahomes doesn't look great, but the big thing I'm hearing is you lose now so you can win later.
Yeah, because, it was inevitable, right? It's different from the Patriots undefeated team that went all the way to the Super Bowl, where it seemed every week you're like, okay, this is the best team in the NFL. With the Chiefs this year, similar to kind of like the Steelers a few years ago, it's like, you're like, well, they're still undefeated, but and it's that but that's in there. That's like, okay, this team is probably not an undefeated team. This is not the best team in the league. Maybe not even a top 3 team in the league. They're just somehow winning games.
And we've seen this before where the Bills will beat the Chiefs in the regular season. And don't get me wrong, I don't want to take this away from the Bills because they looked really good. That offense especially, I know Patrick Mahomes throws 2 picks, but also like Josh Allen kind of deciphered that Chiefs defense like we've never seen before. Obviously haven't seen it before this season because the Chiefs were undefeated. But, Josh Allen putting himself in that MVP conversation, especially with that angry touchdown run at the end of the game. That's football right there.
And didn't Mahomes throw a pick like near the end of the game as well?
I believe so, yes. And that's where I kind of wanted to talk about maybe the problem with Mahomes. I was thinking about this last night on my drive home from the gym, just getting those thoughts in. And I don't know if you also saw his first interception, which was on the first drive of the game. A lot of these picks I've started to realize, especially this year specifically, are like in the past we used to be like, oh my gosh, how is he completing these throws? And I wouldn't say it's like an ego thing getting to Mahomes where it's like, he thinks he can complete every throw, which I think a quarterback should have that mindset. Like you should have the mindset of like, you can make this throw because then you're confident in yourself. But it's just the other side of the coin, whereas we were always saying like, oh my gosh, how did he complete that? To now it's like, oh, that was a little risky, and you saw the risk more than the reward on that throw. Especially with that first pick on the first drive of the game, you're falling down, throws it over the middle of the field to where I believe it was Noah Gray or Travis Kelce's there, and it's just over the head of him and goes right into the hands of a Bills defender. Kills all momentum on that drive.
And this is, I feel like we're just seeing what happens when Mahomes isn't getting lucky, right? Because, most of his career, at least in the last few years, he's probably been, if there's a stat for dropped interceptions, he's probably been right up there at the top. Because I think there was one season where he threw like almost no picks, and people had him in the MVP conversation. But then you like really look at film and you're like, okay, he has thrown the ball into defenders' hands like 2 to 3 times a game. they just can't come up with big plays on it. They can't come up with the ball. So I mean, like now it seems like maybe defenders are more keyed in to the fact that the ball could be in your hands at any given moment.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, Mahomes is, that's the issue that comes with creativity, is like, not your own players might not even be ready for what you're doing. You might not be ready for what you're doing.
Sometimes it's not going to work.
Yeah.
Like when you're a quarterback and you're falling down, you're about to get sacked, and you just throw it over the middle of the field. Sometimes that is going to get picked, and and I was telling a friend the other day, I'm like, sometimes it is getting really hard to defend Patrick Mahomes as the best quarterback in the league. I still think he is, obviously. Don't get me wrong. And I'm not reinventing the wheel here by saying that, but you're going to, like, I want to, if for him to get dethroned as the best quarterback in the league, there's going to be someone where, like, yes, this season you have Lamar, Joe Burrow, Josh Allen, the big name guys, and some other people that have better stats and are playing better than Patrick Mahomes. But for him to get dethroned, I would need to see someone to be consistently better than him for more than like an 18-game stretch.
Well, even Tom Brady had like a 10-year stretch where he just wasn't anything special.
Mm-hmm.
He didn't get his team to the Super Bowl. He didn't
yeah.
And maybe 10 years is a bit of a stretch, but like there were quite a few years where he didn't look like a great quarterback. I mean, you look at these Hall of Fame guys. Peyton Manning had a very rough season, I believe, the year that he won a Super Bowl. I mean, you look at Eli Manning, too. Led the league in interceptions.
Ben Roethlisberger in his Super Bowls was not good. So
yeah, I mean, you can't expect a player to be great every single year, right? Yeah. That's just not possible. I mean, maybe if they play like a 5-year career, but like there's going to be times where they're having down years. They're not playing as good as they could have. I mean, last year, I feel like it wasn't really a down year because he was completing passes.
Mm-hmm.
It was just his players were deciding to hand the ball to the other team.
Well, when I think that also, like, he had a standard set in 2019, his first year as 2018, his first year as a starter, when he wins the MVP and throws 50 touchdowns. So,
yeah, which no quarterback has done that more than once.
Right. So, but he's still the best quarterback in the league. Like you said, and you know what? He is still the best quarterback in the league because even though they lose this game, this probably was one of his worst performances of the season, even though he throws 3 touchdowns, whatever. Still 2 picks, under 200 passing yards. They're still 9-1. So
I think people are trying to discredit them because they almost have like their own records where the Chiefs are in their head. They're like, well, the Chiefs are technically like under 500 because they should have lost this game and this game and this game. But like currently, are they still the best team in the league? Like,
oh yeah, no, yeah, for sure. There's no other. I don't believe there's no other team with 9 wins. There's a team with 8. There's a couple teams with 8 wins, I believe. The Lions are also 9-1. Excuse me.
Yeah. Okay. And the Bills are 9-2.
Oh.
But yeah, the Lions being the only other team with 1 loss. I mean, they're the best AFC team currently. Even though the Bills are better than them, the Ravens are better than them, Steelers possibly better than them. But on paper, record-wise, they're already set to get the number 1 seed.
Yeah, what do they have to? I mean, they'll have an easier stretch down the road here. They get to play the Panthers next. So here's your free win number 10. But I mean,
don't count out Bryce Young.
Yeah, don't count him out. They are coming off the bye week too, so who knows what the Panthers got cooked up.
Could be the rest that they needed.
Let me place that bet. But I mean, we talk about other elite teams in the NFL. Oh my goodness, the Lions are they were unstoppable on Sunday. Literally unstoppable.
Well, I was watching our boy Ari Mirov tweet.
Mm-hmm.
He sent out a tweet like probably second quarter. He's like, Lions possessions this today. Touchdown, 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 touchdown. And he's like, oh, let me update this. After 6 possessions, 2 more touchdowns.
Yep.
Let me update this. It was just like every single possession was a touchdown. I mean, is that the best game the Lions have played? It seems like just everything was working.
I mean, that's what it's felt like the last couple weeks. Like even with Jared Goff throwing almost half a dozen interceptions against the Texans, still getting a win. Let me count them up here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Well, 7 straight touchdown drives to start the game.
And then a field goal.
8 straight scoring drives, and then the one where they don't score is the end of the game. So, with I would assume their backups, and so I mean they beat 52-6. They're a fun team to watch. I'll just say that they're one of the most fun team to watch. And this is what gets me excited for even like that Bills Chiefs games that we just got done talking about. It's making me excited for the playoffs when you're going to see the best of the best teams duke them out. And I think, it is starting to get a little bit top heavy in each conference, but like it's no doubt going to be fun to watch.
Oh yeah, I mean the Lions. There's just doesn't seem like there's a team in the NFC that can beat them, which is crazy. Because it feels like it was not that long ago that they were the worst team in the league.
And I believe now on most betting sites, they are the Super Bowl favorite.
Well, they have to be.
Right.
I mean, especially after we saw Mahomes lose, we were like, oh, Mahomes is inevitable. Well, he's no longer inevitable, right? Because he showed that he's a weakness.
Now, they do have the Lions do have some interesting matchups coming up. I'll just list the rest of their games. Colts, Bears, Packers, Bills, Bears, Niners, Vikings. So I could see a couple more losses in there, particularly to the Packers maybe, or maybe even the Bills. And if they lose to the Bills, I think that, swaps them. The Bills are now the best team in the league, or not the best team in the league, but more of a Super Bowl contender.
They probably would be the best team in the league. That might be the battle for the crown.
It could be, but it doesn't really matter when. So I got to make it happen in the playoffs. But, I mean, like I said, Lions just unbelievable. Jared Goff, 400 passing yards, 4 touchdowns. It's insane.
Yeah, I mean, everything's going right for them. I mean, you have the best running back duo in the league. You have a quarterback that, even if he throws 5 interceptions, doesn't matter. Still win games. You probably have one of the best receivers in the league. I mean, that offense is just clearly unstoppable.
Yeah, and it's not even just the weapons. It's just like the ability to get them open, like these play calls that they've had. I'm so surprised that their offensive coordinator, Ben Johnson, is still there. The culture surrounded by them is like unmatched. It's just, and did you see that I think we talked about it on the last show when we talked about that stat where it's like, oh, Jared Goff has 5 games with 5 interceptions and he's undefeated in those.
That was a fake stat.
Yeah, it was a fake stat.
Yeah, he had 1 game before where he had 4 picks and he lost it, which clearly.
Did you see that?
I saw that Pat McAfee got.
Yeah.
Well, I saw the guy who tweeted it. I saw him on Twitter. He's like, holy cow, I can't believe people ran away with this tweet. I completely made this up. He had a clip of Pat McAfee talking about it on his show with Aaron Rodgers.
But did you, I mean, a lot of people are also hating on that guy on Twitter too. It's like, okay, you want to make up a fake stat. People do that all the time on Twitter. But he also doubled down and made a fake StatMuse like screen. You know what StatMuse is, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, he made like a fake StatMuse screenshot that said like the same thing.
Yeah, I saw
and
that.
And then he's like, "Oh, I didn't expect people to run away with this," but he doubled down.
Yeah, and I mean, to be fair, people could just look up
Yeah, I don't know
Jared Goff.
why. I don't know why I ran away with that because it's literally as easy as going to Pro Football Reference, Jared Goff game logs, interceptions, sort from most to least, and you would have. I would have easily seen that. What'd you say he had one game before this with 5 interceptions?
Yeah, with 4. That was his first ever game with 5, I believe.
Oh well, then.
But like, I mean, look it up. I mean, it's that easy.
Apparently, it's not. I mean, but it is kind of funny to see it go past like now Pat McAfee, who is on ESPN, and just kind of run with it.
Yeah, that was something.
But here's the thing: is if it wasn't Jared Goff, would it be as believable? Like if someone said it about like Lamar, we'd be like, oh well, that's just not true.
Yeah, I'm like, I don't remember the last time. But I mean, you look at Jared Goff. I mean, yeah, I'm looking it up. He did have one game with 4 picks. Really, the only, first game with 5. He's only had one game with 4. Only 2 games with 3 picks. So
I'm gonna assume that 4-pick game was that with the Rams.
yes, it was 15-6 loss to Chicago.
I weirdly remember that game because it was that low scoring of a game, even though he threw 4 picks.
Yeah, but I mean, Goff's been in the league for 9 years.
Mm-hmm.
Most of that with the Rams, where you're like, that team was so good with their defense. You honestly didn't know. Like, you were like, okay, Jared Goff's just that one dude who plays on the Rams.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, it's a very believable stat in that case because it's like he was never like an elite quarterback.
Right. Yeah. Before he got to Detroit, it was kind of like bouncing between that like top 15 area because that's really why I remember him getting ran out of Los Angeles because he was throwing a lot of picks. Not a lot, but more than like the defense, like you said. They had a good defense then, more than the defense could make up for.
Yeah. Although, look at him in 2018.
That's
4,000, like 4,700 passing yards, 32 touchdowns, like 12 picks. I mean,
yeah,
13-3 record. I mean, it seems like he was not a bad quarterback.
that was the Super Bowl year, wasn't it?
I believe so.
Yes. Yep.
And then, yeah, a couple down. I mean, still 4,700 passing yards. I mean, the Bears would love to have a guy like this who's hitting 4,000 a year, but
true. Now we can move on to the Bears. We talked about some exciting games, but just when you think, and we talked about the Chiefs earlier, so this works. Just when you think that we're done seeing blocked field goals to win games, and I just rewatched that game this morning. Bears-Packers comes down. Caleb Williams leads the drive to win the game, to set him up for a game-winning field goal. Blocked. For the second week in a row, we have a team that wins a game with a blocked field goal. I'm so sorry, Bears fans. I'm so sorry.
I somehow follow a lot of Bears fans on Twitter because the amount of just sadness that poured out on my notification feed when that was blocked. It was just Bears fans just can't have anything. I feel bad for them.
Yeah. In recent breaking news, Neo will be performing at the Big 12 championship halftime of the Big 12 championship game.
Major breaking. Although you did see that Beyonce is going to perform on the Christmas games.
Well, hopefully Netflix can actually broadcast that on Fridays.
I mean, I feel like they had to buffer just to keep people from seeing how rigged the fight was.
Now, rigged, or do you think it really was just terrible? Well, I guess it could be both. It could just be a terrible fight that everyone knew was rigged.
Yeah, I mean, Jake Paul's a WWE fighter, It takes after his brother. They make it up for entertainment. I think going into this, my thought process was I don't think Mike Tyson's going to win because this isn't going to be a real fight.
Mm-hmm.
For one reason, Mike Tyson's in a lot of debt. Jake was probably like, I'll give you like 100 mil if you just throw this fight.
It was
If you
20 million.
knock me out, you're not going to get anything. You know?
It was 20 million. Just to let you know.
Wasn't that 20 million just a fight?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
I
then
mean, there's probably under the table money for like, hey, if you knock me out, you're not getting any money.
But I mean, the worst part about it was okay. There's a couple things like just the stats at the end were terrible. I mean, Jake Paul had more punches landed than Mike Tyson had like punches thrown. I want to say.
Yeah, Mike Tyson had to pull his punches. I mean, in the first round, he saw him like actually fighting.
Yeah,
and Jake Paul's like,
was...
"Oh, I gotta hug him and tell him, hey, you need to ease up, or you're not getting fucking paid." You know,
right?
But I mean, and then later on, he's like, you'll see him like, "Oh, I can get in there," and he's like, "Ooh, actually, never mind. If I hit him here, I'm gonna knock him out." He's biting his glove, going like, I gotta remember, I can't actually kill this guy."
Yeah, and it was so tough to watch that in the same room with like 3 people that knew him in his prime, like my uncle and one other dude, and my uncle's just like, "This is not him." It's like he was so pissed. I'm like, this is like watching your hero, like your idol, just get absolutely embarrassed on national television.
Yeah, well, I mean, that was like when Muhammad Ali fought. Gosh, who was it? Was it Joe Frazier? Or it was somebody near the end of his career. Like Muhammad Ali's well out of his prime, and it was like an up and coming boxer. Just beat up Muhammad Ali, and yeah, that was just the last we saw of him.
That'll probably be the last. That'll probably be the last we see of Mike Tyson. Now
he's sitting pretty now. I mean, he just needed to pay off his debts. Did that.
Now to hit quick on Jake Paul. Are you? I mean, I know my answer for this. Are you done watching him fight?
Oh, I've never watched him fight. I did not tune into that. I saw some highlights. I saw the first round, and then I saw the last round. But yeah, no, I mean, he's not a real fighter. He's not a boxer until he actually boxes somebody that is worth anything. I mean, he's just beating up old people and
NBA players,
professional athletes from other sports.
Yeah. I'll be honest.
Francis Ngannou or whatever.
I will continue to watch him. I'm going to continue to watch the fights. I'm going to buy into it. I don't care, whatever. But I would, obviously like to see him fight a real fighter. The first one that was like a real fighter for him was Tommy Fury, and he lost.
Yeah, because that was the first one where Tommy Fury is probably like, yeah, I'm not going to fight you if there's a no knockout clause in here, or there's a, you have to win clause.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like if the fights were fair, I'd probably watch them. I would love to see Jake Paul get knocked out. I mean, he probably would against a real fighter. But I mean, at this point, he's just feeling his ego by forcing people to take losses against him.
One quick last hit on that. Now, what I was surprised by is he did look pretty big, though, on Friday. He bulked up for that.
Yeah. Although, I mean, I feel like he was also on stuff.
You're more known to that. Or not known, but you're more knowledgeable about that than I am.
To it, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I mean, he did have some gyno, which, I mean, pretty clear. I mean, he did set up the fight, so he can juice if he wants to. Mm-hmm. But, I mean, hopping on stuff to beat up a 60-year-old man is, again, pretty disrespectful. I mean, they can never make me like you, Jake Paul. Just a terrible human being from start to finish.
It's one of Christian's favorite phrases. But the last quick hit on that, the Packers-Bears game, I think it would have been obviously nice for the Bears to win that, but like they clutched up. They clutched up.
Packers are going to the playoffs, so That's a game they have to win. So at that point, you're like, they have to block this field goal.
And we'll talk more about them when we get into a little bit of our playoff segment here. But yeah, I mean, shout out to Matt LaFleur for still being able to run with the punches of this season. Is Jordan Love going to play? Is he not going to play? If he does play, he's going to throw a pick or two. The defense has been whatever, but they're sitting now at, I want to say, get their official record here, 7-3. So
yeah, same as the Chargers.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
now
also, I believe Tom Brady commentated that game, right?
Yes.
Really coming into his own as a commentator.
He's gotten better for sure.
I watched a play where really nice block on a run play, set up a touchdown. Gets really into it. I'm like, okay, this is kind of what we wanted from you, Tom.
Yeah. Like this, I mean, yeah.
Some energy.
Mm-hmm.
Good to see. I like him more as a commentator. So.
I real quick wanted to get into the Steelers-Ravens game that we got to watch. That the awards did come out. Chris Boswell does win Special Teams Player of the Week for the AFC for hitting 6 field goals to win that game against the Ravens, where this was probably the first game where Russell Wilson didn't look amazing as a Steelers quarterback, but still find a way to win. Now we're sitting at 8-2 atop the AFC North. I mean, what a crazy run here by the Steelers.
Yeah. I mean, I'm just never going to get my hopes up about the Steelers. I mean, for one, I'm a Browns fan, so I don't really like them at all.
Right.
They tend to just have good records in the regular season and then just fizzle.
Mm-hmm.
I think the Ravens looked off. It could just be a testament to how good the Steelers' defense is. But, I mean, that just didn't seem like they were doing their normal game plan, right? I mean, it seemed like they could run it with Henry, but they just, he didn't break off one of his big runs, so it was kind of a little stagnant in the run game. Lamar, you look at his stats, he's a little inaccurate, but it wasn't like a MVP Lamar game.
Yeah, this is definitely where he takes a step back in that race. And Colin Cowherd, as much as I don't really like him that much, talked about this game a little bit, and he's like, the Steelers' defense did what they always do well against Lamar, and is to make him throw, even when they have Derrick Henry, who is running the ball pretty well outside of a fumble. Like, you force. I think Lamar is like a 1-4 record now against the Steelers. So that defense has just been doing this to him his whole career, forcing him to be a little bit of a pocket passer, and that's what they did. And even when the Steelers aren't really playing that well offensively, still getting the job done. And, also they got helped out a little bit by 2 missed field goals from Justin Tucker.
Yeah.
Excuse me. Lamar's not kicking. Come on, Lamar.
Yeah. I mean, there's like a lot to say about this game because, first of all, Justin Tucker, I feel like he's kind of fading. I mean,
a little bit.
Maybe he's just getting up there in age, but doesn't look as good this year. I mean, people are saying, oh, it's only 5 missed field goals this season. That's not much. But for a guy like Justin Tucker, that's a lot. And also, a lot of them are in kind of like big game moments where, like, you have to hit those kicks.
Yeah, that's what people have been saying, where it's like he always used to be just like that. As long as, like, if the Ravens get past the 50-yard line, they're probably good.
Yeah, now it's like, oh, hopefully he hits this. And you have never said that before in his career.
Right. Like, if it was, like, anything from between, like, even, like, 50, 53 and, like, 40, you're like, anything up to, like, 53 yards, you were like, okay, this is going in.
Chip shot range.
Yeah, like, this is perfect for him. Now, and 2 field goals, I think he's sitting around that 70% field goal percentage. So
That's not great.
yeah, I mean,
But then I also think that this isn't really like showing you that the Steelers are good. I mean, you can't win you can't win playoff games kicking only field goals, right?
no.
Like even against good teams, you're going to have to score touchdowns. You can't rely on the other team to have a star player fumble the ball or have
Hmm.
their star quarterback throw a pick or miss 2 field goals to barely pull out a win. I mean,
Hmm.
the Steelers need to actually show that they can play on both sides of the ball.
Yeah. And both these teams now, I mean, we'll see them again, thankfully, play each other. I'm looking forward to the next matchup. Hopefully, we can actually see the Steelers score a touchdown. But the rest of the schedule here for the Ravens, a bit of a gauntlet, a bit more of a gauntlet. Chargers, Eagles, Giants, Steelers again, Texans, Browns. Those
Oof.
Chargers, Eagles, Texans games are going to be a little bit hard. Maybe this is where we see the Ravens start to dip off a little bit. Still make the playoffs, obviously, but veer off just a tad bit. And then the Steelers, they have Bengals, Browns, Eagles, Ravens, Chiefs, Bengals. So with the Bengals making the push that they're trying to make, even though they just lost to the Chargers,
I mean,
this is a good win for both, or this is a good win for the Steelers, but both teams still with a lot left on their schedule where things could go wrong.
especially in the conference slate where it's
Mm-hmm.
like, or the division slate,
Mm.
where, I mean, that's where you decide like playoff teams and teams that are going to be staying home.
Mm-hmm. And speaking
Although I
of,
don't think either of these teams are going to miss the playoffs.
no, I think they both
But
make it for sure. And will, like I said, we'll get to that. You're jumping ahead of me here a little bit, but with playoff implications in mind, and talking about divisions here, I think I just wrote on our docket here. What is the NFC West? I mean, what are we looking at now? Who, like, if you had to solidly
what
make a
are we looking
decision,
at?
if you had to make, if you had to solidify a decision about who would be making the playoffs coming out of the NFC West, are we really rolling with the, what are they, 6-4 Cardinals right now?
I mean, this is anybody's division to grab. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, every single team is within one game of each other.
Mm-hmm.
You have 3 of them at 5-5. I mean, at this point, I don't even know what to think. I don't even know. I think the Cardinals. I think the Cardinals are actually good. I think that's something that we can't just count them out because
Oh no,
they
yeah, for sure.
haven't been good in a while. But I think they are probably the likely team to come out with the playoff spot.
Mm-hmm.
But then the Rams, Seahawks, 49ers, all 3 of those teams are good enough to make the playoffs. So it's really going to come down to whichever team can finish strong.
Right. And yeah, you mentioned it. Rams, Seahawks, San Fran, all 5-5. Cardinals are the only team with more than 5 wins. They're sitting at 6-4 right now. Obviously, some more divisional matchups for all of them to be playing right now, but Cardinals have been probably the most exciting and maybe the most consistent down this stretch. Rams have, had their lulls the same way that they've been having the last couple years. Niners, even with Christian McCaffrey back, don't look like a complete team. And then Seattle, they went on that big losing streak a little bit ago. Yeah, they beat the Niners, but can we really still even believe in them?
Yeah. I mean, out of those teams, I want to say that the 49ers are, I mean, they've just clearly been the most consistently like well coached team.
Yeah,
Like
especially
I think,
over the last couple of years. Yeah.
yeah, I think when it comes to like grind time, I think that's when they're gonna really push to make it to the playoffs.
Mm-hmm.
But the Rams have been, I mean, outside of those weeks where everybody on their team was injured, I mean, they've looked good. So it's like
Mm-hmm.
that is also a team that I could see taking this.
Now the Niners, a bit of a rough stretch to finish the season. Packers, Bills, Bears, Rams, Dolphins, Lions, Cardinals. I mean, I think I see at three, maybe even four more losses there, which
Yeah,
would put
I
them at
mean,
possibly 9 losses this year.
you just look at their schedule as a whole. Do they have to have like the hardest schedule?
Mm-hmm.
They've already gone through the Patriots. No, okay. They have gone through the Vikings and the Chiefs. They have to play the Cardinals twice, the Rams twice, who are both teams that probably have 7 wins in a different division.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe that's. I mean, I feel like they also have to play the Bucks, and now they have to play the Packers, Bills, Lions, Dolphins.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's tough. And I think okay. I mean, to be fair, it they just play the NFC North this year, which
That's
maybe
tough.
NFC North teams just have the hardest schedule. Maybe the Bears have the hardest schedule. If we really look at it, they have to play the Lions twice, the Vikings twice, and the Packers twice. But I mean, yeah, the NFC West is turning into a gauntlet.
Yeah, and even looking at the Rams right now, who I is probably the team that I like. One of my most underrated teams that I've been consistently following over the last couple of years. They also have a bit of a hard schedule. Eagles this week on what's the 24th going to be? Is that Sunday Night Football?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And then Bills, and of course, obviously the Niners, Cardinals, and the Seahawks. So they have to play everyone in the division one more time. But Eagles, Bills, especially with a couple more, or playing their division one more time again, a toss up for them too as well. I know they make the playoffs last year. Cooper Kupp, Puka Nakua. Um, you know, it's going to be tough for them as well, and it's going to be a great. It's going to be great to watch. The NFC, uh, the NFC West down the stretch.
Yeah, I mean we're getting down to it.
Yeah, and
We are in the final stretch.
I've been hinting at it this whole episode pretty much. We put together, I compiled this list of separating the teams with playoff pushes into categories. I got 3 different categories for you. I'll let you and the viewers know. You can critique me however you want. Maybe you want me to move some teams around, but this is just what I have mapped out right now. So for now, I just labeled it the obvious ones: Chiefs, Bills, Ravens, Lions. Making the playoffs, likely going to be making either their respective conference championship game, or putting up big fits in the divisional round.
Although I don't know if the Ravens should be in that category anymore. They're now sitting at 4 losses, which we're looking at the obvious ones: Chiefs, Bills, Lions. These are all teams that have 9 wins.
Right. But I'm more saying that like I think when the playoffs do come around, even though I'm not the biggest believer of Lamar in the playoffs, they're going to at least clutch up. And
But they haven't.
okay, if they beat the Steelers, I think you're agreeing with me more on this.
Yeah, probably. But now they've dropped 4 games, which means they've shown that 4 teams can beat them. They've
And
lost to the Browns
the Chiefs
as well. I mean, they've lost to bad teams. They've lost to good teams. They're only going to be playing the best of the best. Last year, the team looked better going into the playoffs, right? I mean, they looked like one of the best teams in the league, top 2. And the only reason that Lamar won MVP. Now, on paper, yes, in the games that they've won, they look like the best team. But they've also lost more games. So it's like I don't see a deep playoff push for them. I think this is a year that they could easily get knocked out in the first round. I don't see them making the AFC Championship game. I mean, it's just, yeah, sure, they have Derrick Henry. They have the most talented offense and defense pairing in the league when they're both on, but they've just dropped too many games.
I see completely what you're saying here right now. That's definitely something to consider. But I think really, if we want to keep it to 4 teams, there's no one really in this next category that you could say for my next category that I have the playoff shoe-ins, where I think they're either going to be right there for a playoff spot or, like they are a shoe-in to make the playoffs entirely. And I don't really I think the Ravens are just more than that. I think they're just, as a team, yes, they dropped this game to the Steelers, but I think they, over the next couple of weeks, we are going to see them really for what they are. I'm looking forward to them proving you wrong, really, Christian.
I mean, I hope so. I think it's about time Lamar gets a Super Bowl, but they just have never been able to perform in the playoffs.
Yeah.
When the lights come on, they shrivel up.
I want to see a little bit more from their defense, but the offense had a little bit of a stumble this week. I'm looking past that right now. I like to look past some things. But playoff shoe-ins: Packers, Steelers, Commanders, Eagles, Chargers, Texans, Vikings. I think I almost didn't put the Texans in there, but then when you keep in mind that they play in the AFC South,
yeah,
I think those are, like I said, all shoe-ins to make the playoffs right now, or they're at least making a really good push to put themselves in position to make the playoffs.
Yeah, Texans are kind of just cruising because of how weak that division is.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I mean, the rest of these teams, I think the NFC North, Packers, Vikings, they've done enough to show that they are playoff teams. Commanders, I mean, yes, they lose this week, but I think that's more of a testament to how good the Eagles are somehow. I'll be honest, unexpected for me. But I think if you need a 4th team to put in the obvious ones, I think the Eagles at this point are kind of proving that. 8-2 with Saquon Barkley fully healthy, they're kind of unstoppable on offense.
And to bring up the Texans real quick, did want to say that they do have a very rough stretch where they might drop 2 more games, actually, where I just realized they play the Chiefs December 21st, and then 4 days later play the Ravens on Christmas.
Oof.
Yeah. Now that's going to be tough.
Christmas, Texans. Yeah. Here's 2 losses.
Here's 2 losses in 4 or 5 days, whatever you want to call it. But yeah, the Eagles, kind of like the Texans, although looking a little bit more impressive, cruising in this NFC East. I know they have a very impressive win this past Thursday, beating the Commanders. So, and really looking forward to the next time they match up as well. Jane Daniels actually looked human, but he's still leading his team to the playoffs for sure, in my opinion. I think those 2 teams all come out of the NFC.
Yeah. I want to see this Eagles-Ravens game because that will be the decider of which team looks more playoff ready.
If the Eagles win that game, then I'm willing to take out the Ravens, put in the Eagles for the obvious ones.
Yeah. If the Ravens lose that game, first round exits. That's what I'm saying.
I could see that happening. There are some times where before last year, Lamar just didn't come up clutch in the playoffs, and even last year, bit of a stumble there. But now moving on to this last category, I just said they can't afford to mess up. These are teams that they've went on losing streaks, but they've pulled together some wins here recently. One of these teams a little bit less, but a promising stretch to end the year, hopefully. So Dolphins, Broncos, and you added the Bucks, which I think is a great point, not only because I love to watch Baker Mayfield, but they are that team that I was saying have a favorable path to the playoffs.
Yeah. I mean, they have to – you have 6 wins. At this point, you have to pretty much win out almost. You have to
– 6 losses, you mean?
Oh, yeah. Did I say wins?
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, you have to win at least all but one of those games, which, I mean, the only good team they play is the Chargers. So you're looking at a
And
team that's 10-7. That's a playoff team. I mean, they win out, they're 11-6.
yeah, and
But they can't slip.
the Falcons haven't looked that great either recently. They just lost to who was it? The Bo Nix and the
Mm-hmm.
Broncos, who we didn't even talk
Got
about that
destroyed.
game, but four passing touchdowns from Bo Nix.
I mean, he's the
Wow,
real deal.
he
He's
is. But yeah,
rookie of the year.
possibly he is putting himself in that race with Jane Daniels and who you mentioned before the show, Brock Bowers.
Oh yeah. Although I don't think it's a serious mention, but Brock Bowers is probably the MVP of his team, and
Yes,
one of if not the best tight ends currently. Just consistently throughout the entire season, he has been.
it's true. Now,
Um,
the Falcons I mentioned not playing great. The rest of their games are Chargers, Vikings, Raiders, Giants, Commanders, Panthers.
yeah,
The
they have three
Bucks,
losable games there.
yeah, the Bucks, Giants, Panthers, Raiders, Chargers, Cowboys, Panthers again, Saints. They are, and they had a very, very rough stretch where they had to. I mean, I'm just even going to look at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. The last 7 games for the Bucks. Falcons loss, Saints win, Ravens loss, Falcons loss, Chiefs loss, Niners loss. I mean, not many teams are going to be able to pull together wins when you have to play four, five great teams in your last 6. Well, 4 great teams in your last 6 games.
Yeah, I mean they went through a gauntlet. I think it prepared them well for the playoffs because you almost beat the Chiefs, you
Mm-hmm.
almost beat the Ravens. I mean, you almost beat the 49ers as well. I mean, they've
Mm-hmm.
been competitive in the Falcons games as well. I mean, it shows that they're right there.
Yeah.
They're really close to beating these teams. And now they have a few weeks to string together wins, get some confidence, get some momentum, figure out what's going to flip that switch going into the
Mm-hmm.
playoffs, and then they can be dangerous. I mean, I'm a huge momentum guy, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think momentum's huge in sports, which is why like bye weeks I think are almost hurt more than help. But I mean, you have a team like the Bucks who's if they win all these games, they're now on a 7-win streak, possibly getting a wild card, going to beat one of the worst teams in the NFC. Imagine going up against, I mean, if they can avoid the Lions for as long as possible,
Mm-hmm.
they could genuinely make the NFC Championship.
Okay, well, let's calm down here. But
We'll have to
we've
see how
seen,
everything plays out.
yeah.
But
Well, let's have them play the Giants, and then we can start. Let's have them get to 500. They play the Giants,
that's
and
true.
then whoever I said after that, see them get to 500, and then we can talk about more of a playoff push. I'm just saying. I'm glad
But
that you added this because they
they don't
can't
look
afford to
like
slip.
a sub 500 team, right? They don't
Yeah.
look like
No.
4-6 team.
No. Now, a team that, depending on who their starting quarterback is, looks like a sub 500 team, the Dolphins. I mentioned them again. They just can't slip up again. They need to keep playing great. The rest of their stretch here is Patriots, Packers, Jets, Texans, Niners, Browns, Jets again. I would favor them in some matchups there. Bills are obviously going to win this division, but again, I think they're going to be competing with the Broncos here, even though the Broncos are sitting at 6-5 with that wild card spot in the AFC.
Yeah, and they got their Bills games out of the way.
Yep.
So, I mean, the rest of the schedule, yeah, they have some tough games, but they're in a similar situation to the Bucks, where if you drop one of those games, you can drop one of those games. You're probably still in the playoffs.
Right. And they just need to get some impressive wins. Like if they can beat the Packers, that would be very impressive. Same with either the Texans And even we don't even know what to think about the Niners right now. So it's almost
Mhm.
like you can chalk up the Patriots game, the 2 Jets games, and the Browns game to wins. So that already there is 4 wins.
I don't know about that Browns game. Come on.
Okay. And for anyone that wonders why we don't talk about the Browns and the Cowboys right now, sorry, we talk about good teams on this show. Well, some bad teams, but mostly good teams.
Yeah.
Plus, I don't need to
Why we
talk.
haven't brought up the Brown? Well, we talk about the Browns a lot when they have Watson. But
Yeah, and we don't need to talk about Jerry Jones and the Cowboys anymore. I'll start talking about them when they can get their roof fixed.
yeah, you see that was like falling down.
Yeah, I didn't see the video for a while, and I was surprised. I was like, okay, in this generation, you're telling me no one was recording that? But yeah, those 3 teams. I guess
Yeah.
real quick we can hit on our teams. Cowboys lose again. Browns lose again. The Browns got diced up by Taysom Hill though, who got NFC Offensive Player of the Week.
Jeez. Apparently, I don't want to talk about it. Yeah, no, I don't even know what Taysom Hill legacy game.
Yeah, Taysom Hill, quarterback, wide receiver, tight end, whatever you want to call him.
And Taysom Hill may be the reason that I make the playoffs in our fantasy league
That's true.
because he, for some reason, somebody on our league started him
Mm.
in the tight end spot. He put
Mm-hmm.
up 41 points. He won his matchup by like 13.
Mm.
Literally would have switched who won if he didn't start him. And then
Right.
because of that, he pushed the third from the bottom team, gave them another loss. Now I'm only 1 game back from them.
Mm.
A lot of things. I mean,
Yeah.
Taysom Hill just destroys my favorite team, but he also helps me.
Yeah, I'm sitting pretty in my in our fantasy league, sitting at
Somehow.
7-4. I want to say, whatever. I have the second most points scored in the league, so I don't want to hear it.
Do you? I feel like you're only like 50 above me.
Nope, second most.
Okay.
So
I have the most, or I had the most points scored against me.
mm.
Yeah.
Well,
had to start. It's been a rough league. It's can't deal with injuries. It is what it is. But
it is. You can't deal with injuries. I know that as a Cowboys fan. Cooper Rush still starting, still looking not great. I don't care if he throws for 300 yards. We can't run the ball. It's the same thing. It's the same thing every week. So just beat the Giants on Thanksgiving, please. Just beat the Giants on Thanksgiving. But that's all I got for this week. Thanks again for joining us on another episode of Trench Talk. We'll have to see what next week's schedule will look like, especially with the holiday coming up. But we will get to you guys again when we can. It's gearing up for some great football down the stretch. I'm really looking forward to it. Tune in next week. See you guys then on Trench Talk.